Where does the world go? Where does the world go to find a blanket for the soul? Gripping at thy conscience, the hidden cauldron between infinite knowledge and the unknown, the undiscovered, serenading on swing mode, trying my hardest to undo thy matrix, thus I can speak its code. Speaking truth to power, such valor, what a sight to see. Forever thankful, like I made me. Throwing fist to the wind, holding the universe, hoping the universe would reciprocate to its node, electrical thinking, sharp as a double-headed sword, with hidden depth in the confines, with its code, sensing my arrival, to not take a dive, then graduate from survival, for a life is the matter, brain clean from clatter. Rain is the cane that filters through my mane. The convoluted fragments of the brain I remain, my ever stain can wither no longer, thus free reign. To no longer survive off propane, like Cain, it alters the properties of the bloodstains. And you know, with this piece, I didn't want to break it down too much, but I just really wanted to the idea behind this was more about liberation. That's literally what I named it as well, you know, just like liberation. And I think there's a few telltale signs in there that, you know, this is the idea that I had behind it. But before we go into that, I guess the main thing I want to speak about today is just creativity, and how that links to perhaps liberation, in a sense, probably more towards the mental side of it, you know, that relief. But we have a guest today, and it's my friend Eche, and I just want to say welcome to Poetry Journal Podcast. Glad you were able to give me some time today. So we had a little discussion about just art in general, or just poetry. You're a poet yourself, so
indeed.
You know, but you know, with poets or artists in general, I always find there was a certain individuality about creativity, and I thought, to me, that's an intriguing thing to kind of, you know, just kind of discuss or speak about, or just go into, you know. So Eche, welcome here. Welcome to Poetry Journal Podcast. Take your time and tell the people about yourself. Tell them, you know, what you do. I hope you have some, you know, we spoke about this. I know you're not very out there with the socials, but I hope you have something that, you know, that you can put out to the people so they can find you and, you know, perhaps get to know you a bit better and see your form of creativity, in a sense. But
okay.
Yeah, so who are you, actually? Who are you as an artist?
Who am I? I am a poet, as you described it, but I think it's just about writing and expression. So that's one of the formats, that's one of the frameworks, which I enjoy, right? Having
Absolutely.
listened to a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap. Then maybe about 6-7 years ago, I actually started dabbling and kind of rhyming. Then before I knew it, everything I'm writing is now to a beat.
Yeah.
Right? And there's, I don't know, going back to what you mentioned, right? Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but in terms of liberation, what I found somehow is that having a beat behind me somehow liberated me, because I now have to kind of operate within this framework. You know, so in a way, when there's no beat, it's like, okay, I can do whatever. And that's somehow, I guess, intimidating, but with the beat, it's constraining, but at the same time, it does provide a certain sense of liberation. So there's a kind of paradox at work in there. And so for me, it's about kind of expressing the inner world and also now kind of conveying the things that I've seen. Because I feel like for me, it was years and years of just kind of internalizing, ruminating, so many thoughts, so much experiences that were bottled up. And then now having an outlet to actually get these thoughts out there, very powerful, very cathartic for me. And then if it helps anybody else, that's a kind of bonus aspect. And
absolutely,
what I find as well in terms of the creation of art, the creation of these rhymes, is it helps me to explore certain ideas. It's like, okay, as it translates from the mind onto the phone, which is where I kind of keep my lyrics, kind of processing it. What does this mean to me? Actually breaking down this concept and thinking in a focused manner about this particular topic.
Absolutely.
So there's a kind of double benefit in that vein as well. And so I'm currently in the process of putting together a project, which I hope to release in a few months' time. And so I've been kind of writing pretty much every day. There's a particular structure that I'm implementing, and it's working well. And it's just overall, it's an exciting journey. Right? There's inspiration everywhere. Right? Meeting interesting people, having interesting conversations, and just a certain natural freedom. The way things are happening, something will happen, and it's like, okay, I have to write about this. Absolutely. It's like, and then something that I have to mention is that every time I get a concept, and I look at my phone, and there's nothing there. Like there's a fear. It's like, how am I gonna do this concept justice? Whenceforth will these words emerge? You know. But then you look back maybe a few days later, and it's like, man, like these words came from somewhere, from the ether, right? Kind of connected with that muse, and then put together this particular piece. You know. And there's something about that, because that fear still happens, but it's like, okay, working through that fear, and I think once that first line is there, then it flows, and then the challenge is, okay, now how does this thing end? How do I kind of wrap this up? What do I want the ending point to be? So that's always an interesting part of the journey also, you know. And I think I've kind of mixed and deviated from your question a bit, but it was kind of like an intro to me. So that's a bit about me anyway.
No, there's no right answer to it. I just want you to give your take on it. But you mentioned some, and actually you spoke on something at the start. I find that I can't remember where I got this quote from, but it's in my head, and you just kind of triggered it when you said there was a certain the beat gives you a certain liberation, and you know, it's almost like what came to my mind is almost like, you know, the whole idea. This goes back to the quote I was thinking of, where it's almost like the expression was discipline and structure. It's freedom. Do you get what I mean? And some people, you know, if you don't really think about it, some people might be like, what kind of ridiculousness is that? You get what I mean? But if you think about it, I get a lot from that, and I really understand that statement, and I really live by that statement, because I feel like, you know, discipline, if me being me, that experience has kind of given me so much in terms of like being disciplined, to be able to kind of liberate myself in a way, to kind of experience life in a different way. It gives so much more to it. And so when you go back to the whole idea of like you saying the beat is liberating, it speaks to, you know, creativity as a whole and what it does for you. Do you get what I mean? So it's just like, there's a lot of profoundness to that whole ideal, and yeah, man, that's really what I like about, you know, what we're doing here in terms of like sharing. There's so many things to art and creativity and just life in general, because it's a certain path that you're in, And you know, if you certain people are not privy to certain things like that because they're not in it, or they don't have the chance to live it. Do you get what I mean? So when we're here, it's just like discuss certain things and just the outlook of different people. It's almost like, you know, people can take so many gems from those discussions and perhaps even apply it to their own life. Do you get what I mean? So
yeah,
that's an interesting take, man. The other thing I really wanted to ask you about is I did send you this quote. Did you have anything to kind of speak on with the piece? I just want to make sure I ask you before we move on.
Do you have the quote? I'm handy.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So could you just reiterate it?
You want me to go through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The quotes.
Gripping at thy conscience, the hidden cauldron between.
Wait, sorry to cut you off. Are you talking about the piece that you?
Yeah. Just the little quote, the quote that I
Okay.
Because it's not the whole thing; it's just the quote of the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think one of the things that resonated with me, there's a line about survival.
Yeah.
Graduating from survival.
Yep.
I don't know why, but that line, it just hit me. It spoke to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like maybe that reflects where I've been, where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because that deeply resonated. Of all the things you mentioned, a lot of interesting things in there, but
yeah.
that aspect of liberation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that line or those two lines kind of are really powerful representations of the concept. You know.
Absolutely.
And there's something about lines, and when you put things in a way that have no right being together, it makes you have to kind of look at it from a different perspective. What does this mean? It's like, and because it's connections at the end of the day, different connections.
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Graduating from survival.
Yeah.
That resonate, that hit home. You know, that's creativity. I haven't heard anyone frame it in that way. You know, even though no idea is original, like. There's
nothing new under the sun.
Ways to express nothing new under the sun, but at the same time, there's infinite ways to express the same idea.
Absolutely.
You know, so both of these things are true at the same time, and that concept of liberation. How many times have people spoken about liberation, but nobody on this planet has your particular vantage point?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a unique perspective, like a fingerprint. You touch upon when you touch upon liberation, it will be different to the way I touch upon liberation, because I've had different experiences.
Absolutely.
You know? And that's the beauty, that's the essence of it. You know, everyone can bring something to the table. There's always something to contribute.
Absolutely.
And so I think that piece, very interesting, and as you said, it's a snippet of the full piece. But that line in particular resonated deeply with me.
Well, that's very interesting, because that line for me, it holds a lot of it carries a lot of weight. You know, there's a lot of magnitude to that line, and you know, it just asks. I think I've mentioned this before when I was just doing previous episodes, and just that idea of just like, are you living or are you surviving? And that's pretty much what's the inspiration behind it. In terms of like, are you living or are you surviving? Because we know what the situation is with a lot of people. Not everybody's living because they don't have the opportunity to live. Maybe they get fortunate at some point in their life, but it's not necessarily a thing that, you know, you're privy to or privileged to do that. And sometimes it's almost like things can be so the terrain can be so hard for certain people life-wise that you know, it's a privilege. It becomes a privilege to live. Do you get what I mean? And so this is the idea I was thinking about when I wrote it. It's almost like, you know, are you living or are you surviving? And I think a lot of people out there are still technically still haven't graduated from survival mode. Do you get what I mean? To live.
Yeah.
And you know, it can be, when you think about it, it's a shame, isn't it? Because that's what we're on this earth, this piece of rock to do, like to live. And so you might when you think about certain people, they go through their life and they never actually grasp that concept, let alone to actually experience living, as opposed to surviving. And I think I had a lot of, I've been, my mentality especially has been about that for a long time, as opposed to living, as opposed to surviving. And it just took me a lot of years to kind of mature to that point where I'm just like, I knew the difference. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, that's where that came from. That's where that came
powerful.
from.
And I think it has, I guess, an extra sense of resonance for me as a teacher. So it's like, oh, I heard graduation is like, okay, it kind of connects on that journey.
Yeah.
Students, but at the end of the day, we're all students of life. You know what I'm saying?
Students of life.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is the other thing I really wanna. Two things. I really wanna. Well, let's start with this. Inspirations. Is there a particular way? Okay, let me start with this. Your the way you go about. What's your process for creativity? Is there a specific way you go about creating, or is it it just happens? Is it just always organic, or have you cultivated your process? Because I've gone through that where it's almost like before I would just let it happen, but I got to understand it, and now I can cultivate it. I've cultivated it in a sense where it's at this point where it's almost like I just need to initiate it, and it just happens from there, as opposed to wait for it to happen. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And I think there's a fine line there. So that's why I'm curious about the way you go about it.
Yeah. So I think I had a similar perspective, and kind of thinking about, okay, writer's block, and maybe it will come.
Yeah.
But I think these days, especially even now,
yeah,
especially as I'm in the midst of this project, it's like part of my journey to work.
Yeah.
The train ride is 33 minutes. So in that 33 minutes, I'm writing something. And what I find is, I guess I'll dip my toes into the realm of flow.
Yeah, yeah.
Before I know it, it's been 15 minutes on the train, 25 minutes. Oh, it's my stop coming up.
Yeah.
Right?
Time flies.
And that happens. So for me, because I know once I get on this train, I'm gonna write.
Yeah, yeah.
So as you said, it's that initiation. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? Let's go. The beat is on, and then I'm writing something. So there's less of there's no kind of worries about the quality or writer's block, or it's like it's just let's go. Let's put something down,
Yeah.
And then it can go from there, because this doesn't need to be the final version, but get some ideas down, see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like there can be no.
It's 17 hours.
Yeah.
In that sense of creating, it's like whatever will be. I might not actually use this thing that I'm writing. It might go to the closet, right? It might go to the archives.
Yeah.
Okay? But just maintaining that sense of discipline and routine. But it might turn out to be something very substantial, which is what happened in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Like the piece that I'm working on, I feel like, wow, like this is what like a very powerful piece for me, and it came from that same discipline, that routine. On the train, let's go, let's write.
That's very
right?
cool, man.
And for me, this is, I guess, a more modern approach. It's not something I was utilizing before. It was kind of waiting for inspiration to arrive.
Yeah.
Waiting for the right beat or for the right moment to arrive. But my perspective, my frame has changed, and there's inspiration everywhere. Right, everywhere. Every conversation, every moment. There's a piece that I wrote, and the origin of that piece was a short conversation in the sauna after a gym session. Turned into a whole piece.
Yeah,
right? So there's inspiration everywhere. It's just, what angle are you looking at these things from? Right? If one broadens their perspective, that conversation can be the seed of a fantastic concept. And what's crazy to me is like as I listen to tracks, even some of my favorite artists, some of my favorite tracks, and I'm like, damn, the subject matter is the same subject matter that I'm hearing. I've heard thousands of times. There's millions of things, millions of perspectives, millions of things that could be spoken about, but it's the same kind of things, but repackaged with extremely fancy lyrics a lot of times. But I'm like, why has no one touched upon this thing? Like it's weird to me, you know. There's so many things to talk about, so many different experiences that we're living on a day-to-day basis. So that sense of inspiration, like, is literally anywhere, you know. And my process of creation, it reflects my brain. My brain, even from the first question you asked, I kind of deviated and I was maybe kind of drifting. So my mind operates very tangentially.
Okay.
Right. Lots of tabs are open simultaneously. Right. And that is how I write.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult for me to write in a linear process. This line, next line, next line. Like, even though I tried to with my latest piece. I'm like, let me do linear. Before I knew it, I'd written this piece, moved on to this next part, moved on to this next part, and then I'm filling in the gaps, and then I kind of stitch it together, weave it together. Maybe move this over there. Like, that's just how my brain works, right? It's kind of very fluid, very flexible in that vein. And I realized, hold on, why do I think this is a problem? Like, there's not one way to create
at all
pieces,
you
know,
at all.
So I've kind of found my voice, and I found the process that works for me. Someone could be listening to this and think, what the heck, how do you write like that? You know, how don't you write in a linear manner? Like, this is the way my brain works. And so thus, this is the way that I write my stuff.
You strike me as a person that thrives in chaos for some reason. By this, from what you was just saying, that's what it sounds like.
I think in chaos there is a lot of opportunity. You know,
absolutely.
There's a lot to be done within that sense of chaos, and you can then take that chaos and kind of form it into order. You know. So I do definitely agree with what you're saying, and it's kind of like, okay, let me put these things down. Some things won't make it; they'll kind of go into the cutting board, you know. Take this line out, but it's just a freedom, right? At the end of the day, you talked about liberation, right? There's liberation in my writing process. It's like, okay, I wrote the end, okay, this, and then furthermore, even on the topic of creation, the piece that I was writing, I didn't know. I started it, and in my mind, it was going to be, okay, this is a really deep piece. This is a personal piece, and I'm just going to write it. But then, as I got to the end of it, I realized, you know what? Maybe I can inject a little hook in it. Right? And that just kind of changed. It changed the tone. It changed everything, you know. But it's literally that fluidity that I'm unfolding. I didn't know it would become this when I started. I didn't go in with the sense of, okay, I'm going to write a 16, then the little hook, and then the 16. I was just writing. The hook came afterwards. And okay, you know what? This actually makes sense for this particular concept. So it's a case of freedom, putting the ideas down, being disciplined, and then kind of seeing what happens with that. And that's that's where I am. That's my current process of creation.
So would you say, like, to an extent, the whole idea of, like, trying to be balanced, you know, that where you know, that fine line between discipline, sticking to the subject matter, and being organic, allowing you to flow enough, or like to kind of allow you enough range, like those between those two, like, do you find it's necessary or not so much for yourself?
I think that's a great question, and one thing that I've noticed definitely as I've evolved over these 6 or so years. In the first few years, it was just excitement to kind of put things together. And it's just, okay, I'm just putting these ideas down, but there wasn't that string that kind of tied things together. You know. But now I feel like conceptually things are definitely tighter. You know. So of course there is deviation
Yeah.
Right? But the way I see it is a kind of a holistic expression. So it will make sense, but maybe you have to look at it from a different vantage point.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, there's a universal subject matter. Sometimes there's multiple themes running through the piece, and then, but at the end of the day, there is a kind of there's a method to the madness, is what I would say.
Absolutely.
Right. And so some topics, I guess, the concept is much more, zoned in, focused, honed.
Yeah.
But even those pieces that I feel are very focused, people have told me that it kind of deviates, but at the end of the day, it converges and it comes together.
It comes back.
Right. So the way that I see it is different from the way other people see it. So for me, it's a case of, number one, I guess something that I am doing more these days is just trying to be extra intentional with the writing. Like, why this line here? Why am I putting this line in the fold? Right? Is it because I just wanted to rhyme this word, or is it actually adding to what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And that's the important question, because if that line makes sense, then maybe I can deviate from the concept in this particular vein. But if it's not making sense, then okay. Or if it doesn't feel right, if something about the line doesn't feel right, scrap it.
Yeah.
Right? So that question of why definitely helps to kind of keep me where I need to be.
So overall, from what I'm getting, it's almost like it might go a bit chaotic, but in the end, the concept or the context of it is still contextual, where you bring it all together, kind of thing.
That's it. Exactly that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not, the destination is to explore the concept, but it's not going to be like a straight line journey.
Yeah.
We might deviate, go off to Siberia, then we come back to France, but then we end up at the destination at the end of the day.
Are there any would you say there's any rules you try to live by that stands out to you in terms of like creativity when it comes to writing? Or even if it's just one thing that is just like, you know what, yeah man, I stand by this when it comes to writing poetry and stuff like that.
I think my rule kind of goes back to that previous statement in terms of intentionality. Like being very mindful with the lyrics, being very mindful, with exactly what I'm saying. Why am I saying this?
Absolutely.
Like that is, for me, that's like the golden rule.
Yeah.
It's like because it's very easy, especially on a kind of rap context, to just drift into braggadocio.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes it's like that's as long as you're, like you said, still living by your rule in terms of being purposeful. If you're creating a piece just to have fun, because I do that sometimes. It's just I'm creating a piece. I'm trying to have fun with creativity. Do you get what I mean? And sometimes that comes through when I'm on stage. If I'm like, okay, let's have some fun, because I don't really want to always throw like a brain hemorrhage towards the audience. Do you get what I mean? Like, I want them to kind of enjoy themselves and have fun sometimes. So that's why I asked that question. I think for me, one of the main reasons I asked that question, because I do as well, and one of the main things I try my best to live by when it comes to writing is rule number one for me is honesty. Like, everything, I have to be honest with myself. Do you get what I mean? It has to come from a real place. And sometimes, maybe people feel like I'm shedding so much of myself, but that's what poetry is about, isn't it? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to spill the beans. You have to just, otherwise what's the point? It's kind of like, and I've heard this, that's why I resonate with comedians so much as well, because if you think about some of the greatest comedians, that's one of the biggest thing for them. It's like honesty. like there's a commonality across the board where it's almost like the greatest ones are the most honest ones. Dave Chappelle, like the Eddie Murphy. One of my underground ones that I really love is Corey Holcomb, and I can't think of anybody else more honest than this guy. And he's just cold with it. Do you get what I mean? But like, it really resonates with me when he speaks because everything comes out of his mouth. It's just real. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why I'm really curious about. Are there certain rules that you live by in terms of like, you know? But at the same time, as you grow, you know, your experience and your outlook on creativity matures. Do you get what I mean? And I think, like you said, when you start out, you just you're just excited just to create. And like, you know, I resonate with what you're saying in terms of like, sometimes it's just a word. I could just hear a word and that instantly makes me want to write something. Do you get what I mean? And just kind of almost like allow it to bloom. It's like a flower. Do you get what I mean? Just have something there where it's almost like tell a story, take somebody on a journey, you know, from my outlook. And you know that one of the greatest things is knowing that you can create so much. It's almost like you're painting in somebody's mind. Do you get what I mean?
That's what words do, right? Words put images into your into your mind, you know.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And you know, for me personally, the greatest art is the one that makes a connection with somebody, including yourself. You know, it's almost like a transference of energy in a sense. Do you get what I mean? And that's art. If you think about some of the greatest artists, that emotional infliction that they give you. Do you get what I mean? It's on level.
That's exactly it. And you know what? I've been thinking about this recently. I'm like, what makes art great to me? Like, what's my criteria for great art? And you captured it. It's like, it should move me. It should somehow. Move you. You know, maybe it kind of it gasses me up because the wordplay is so crazy, but that's still moving me. That's one dimension, but the other dimension, of course, as you mentioned, is in terms of the emotional connections. Like, that's powerful, you know. Like, I won't forget seeing a Da Vinci and it finished me. I was like, what is happening right now? I looked at another painting and it's like, okay, nothing really happened in that vein because it was super abstract. I'm like, okay, no movement at all. But this piece here, finished me.
Absolutely. Man, we could go on all day, man. This is some absolutely profound talks, man. I really enjoy it. I'm glad that you came on. We have just a little bit of time, but I wanna give you the floor. We've got like about 5 minutes, and I just want you to maybe tell the audience about where they can find you, and you know, you have something coming up. Maybe speak on that as well. Let them know, you know, and I'll try and facilitate that. Put some of your links or information where they can find your stuff with the episode.
Sure, I appreciate that. So there's a couple of things I'm working on. I've had a transformative experience, let's put it that way. Like, my journey of writing started after I was sectioned, and I spent 28 days inside the mental health hospital. Oh, wow. Like, I wasn't creating anything before that. So something happened. Something happened in that.
Absolutely.
You know, and it now opened up creative potentialities. Right? So that's like the most important thing that's happened to me. Like, and the greatest thing that's happened to me. And so I'm writing about that and other topics, and I'm kind of putting this together in a body of work. And that's going to be a musical project, which I hope will be releasing this year. Okay, I say hope, but it's going to be releasing this year.
Yeah, man.
And then there's a kind of a deeper exploration, which is going to come in the form of a book.
Yeah.
Right. And that book is going to kind of give you the nitty gritty of this transformative experiences and kind of what it's meant for me, the implications, the struggles that I've faced pre and then post that sectioning journey. So I'm excited about both of these projects, but definitely on the horizon is going to be this musical project.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of social media, I definitely was off for a few years, right? But that was an important mode, because coming back on now, it's like, okay, again, that keyword of intentionality. It's like, okay, what am I going to be doing? How am I going to be using these powerful mediums?
Yeah.
You know, because we're living in one of the greatest ages in terms of actually the barriers to entry are so low. The things you can do. We're having this conversation right
Platforms
now.
are so high.
Technology is, you can have your own home studio. Like, what are we talking about right now? Like, there's so many things that you can do, so many different platforms to actually put your stuff out there, SoundClouds and the YouTubes and everything in between. So we're living in a golden age. And so one place that you can find me is on Instagram. And as Alex said, I'll send the details. But just to kind of name the one platform, the one place that you can find me is the Instagram, and that's Eche in Life, ECHE in Life, one word, and that's where you can find me. So I'm excited to kind of go on this journey, and just kind of get this project out. There's some very interesting themes coming through, and as you said, that notion of honesty, it's like me, someone who was very guarded years ago. It's like just that sense of putting it out there. I'm like, honesty, authenticity, and the creative expression. Very excited to go on this journey, and of course, one thing I've loved as well is that in this mode of creation, going to different events and places and connecting with folks, is that's also where
there you go.
Inspiration
that's a big thing
comes
as well.
from. Like I've been in open mic sessions where it's like, okay, I need to go and write. I need to go home and write. There's a concept that came in my mind, or just being in the midst of creative folks, or in the midst of music, live music. I was like, okay, I'm inspired. I've absorbed this energy. Let's go and do something. And one of the key journeys for me has been to kind of, again, change the frame of perspective. Instead of comparing, it's like, oh man, this person is so good, I'm not going to get to that standard. Flipping that, and it's like, this person is so good, that is amazing, that is inspiring. Let me go and do something.
Just live your journey, live your journey, man, and enjoy it, you know. And that's part of it. Once you do that, it's enjoying it, man. So, man, you said some profound stuff today, and yes, certain things I've learned as well. I didn't really know, but man, I'm excited for you, man. I think this is gonna be a great journey, and I hope you keep going, man. Don't ever stop. Do you get what I mean? And when you're ready, I would love to come back when you're ready, and
yes,
and just bring a copy, show us a copy, this, that. I'm looking to buy one as well. Excited to see what you got planned, man, because I'm excited, man. It's good to see, you know.
Likewise,
we've come from a long way, but we've got probably about 30 seconds left. But thanks, man, and thanks for coming on, spend some time with me, and we'll speak soon. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Take care, my bro.
You too, man.